Okay, welcome to the Halftime Huddle. This is your opportunity midweek to take a breath, take a pause, reflect, and get ready for the second half. It's as small business owners, we start the week generally with all kinds of gung ho plans. Get to mid-week Wednesday and find that life has happened and things get in the way. So this is an opportunity to take that breath, regather your focus, have a listen to conversation. We've got a lovely lady joining us today. I won't say too much because I'll have an option for her to describe what she does and who she is. But her name is Catherine Daley. She's the CEO of Evology, which is into creating carbon offsets, and I will let her explain a lot more about what that means. She's had quite an interesting career, and would love to hear all about how her progression from where she started and what she's doing now. So, without sort of wasting too much time, me just chatting, why don't we say hello to Catherine? Hello, Catherine.
Oh, hello.
Uh, gl-
Nice to be here.
yeah, glad to have you on here. It's been a while. I think we put this quite a while back, didn't we, to book in? So it's nice to see you. It was
Hmm.
probably almost a month ago, I think.
Yeah.
We
Oh,
because
yeah,
we
and because
carry on.
uh, yes, things change quite quickly because of the stage I am with my business. Things do happen quickly. So even a month ago, the landscape looks different to
Oh,
it
brilliant!
does now.
So I'm looking forward to hearing all about that. But we met at a book launch and figured this was an opportunity to. Well, we'd met beforehand, but we met face to face at a book launch, and I
Mm.
grasped the opportunity to have you come along and have a chat. So I intimated that you've had an interesting career path. I'd love to hear about that and what your journey is, your origin story as why you are doing what do now, and so we'd love to hear how you've evolved through your career and what Evology does and why you're doing it. So that's where we go.
Oh, okay, I shall begin. So winding time back a little bit to 18 years old and contemplating, having done some A levels, going, what should I do next? And I was really torn between either going down a design or product design route or an environmental route, because there were two things that both really interested me. And way back then, in the mists of time, if there'd been an option to do an environmental design degree, I would have done it, but there wasn't. So I actually picked the product design route and went to university and studied textiles, and absolutely loved it. It's a fascinating business, and I learnt a lot and worked in the industry for some years, despite the fact that the degree I picked to do, actually we were entering a period in the textile industry that was actually in massive change, and what I had been trained and supported in delivering as a service, as a person, was no longer relevant because none of the textile industry was located in the UK anymore. It'd all gone overseas. That was back in the early 90s. Um, However, I did actually get to work in the textile industry, and that taught me a lot about you've got one product that's made at one place. So I work for a fiber manufacturer. So they were basically taking trees, mushing them up, putting them through a chemical process and producing something called viscose. Um, and from an environmental perspective, it's not the great best industry, but we'll just put that to one side. Um, However, that's just one part, because that fiber that's made in a chemical process then has to make its way through many steps, um, to the final end user, so somebody who's wearing a garment made from viscose. And my job was to talk to everybody in the chain to communicate the benefits of this particular fiber and why it would be great to have it in certain garments. Spent a lot of time in thermal underwear, interestingly. Anyway, so that and that is all super relevant to what I'm doing now, because that stakeholder management and understanding the different needs of people in those different stages through the textile chain is super relevant to what I'm doing now, which I'll come back round to in a little bit. So yeah, I worked in the textile industry or related industries after graduating in this time of turmoil. So that was also interesting from a bigger perspective. And came to the stage in their life where I got married and started having a family, and they were not compatible. I had a global role where I was traveling internationally pretty much twice a month. That was not compatible with being a mother. So I basically ditched my corporate career and went, no, I'm going to just be full on mum. So that's what I did. I had 3 children. I stayed home and raised them. And during that time, I also did work, but I set up my own business because I wanted to be home based. My husband of the time was away working a lot. He had an international role, so he was out of the house like 2 weeks out of 3. So I really wanted to be home for my kids. And so what I chose to do was set up a small manufacturing company out of my garage. And it was a very bespoke business. I was basically engraving glass with handwritten messages or babies' hands and footprints or very particular bits of script. So every piece was unique. And I developed a process to do that. And yeah, that was the business. And to be fair, it was a super interesting business. And I learned a huge amount. It never made a lot of money because it's really hard to yeah, kind of, there's a lot of marketing that's involved to link together customers who want something but quite unique and bespoke like that, and make money out of it. So it was never a massive money spinner, but as I say, I learned a lot about being in business, and worked in that business for 10 years doing that. And then, as many people listening to this will probably know, is that you have to really love what you're doing in order to have the energy for it. And basically, I fell out of love with that business. I liked it, but I didn't love it anymore. And the kind of passion for it kind of evaporated. And then it was just a hard slog. And that was not interesting to me. So I found a buyer for the business and sold it on to somebody who did have the energy and love for it. So that's what happened. And related to being a mum, and as my children got older, I realized there's lots of communication stuff that goes on, and being a parent can be super challenging, and understanding the importance of maintaining a good state, even though things are really kind of quite chaotic around you, and learning how to not lose my state just because it was tricky, because that's not fair on my children. But I had to learn how to do that because that was not my natural state back then. I used to get super stressed and kind of get really frustrated about things, and the impact on my kids was, I wasn't liking it. So I found a way to, you're talking about book recommendations. This was a book from years ago, but it was How to Talk So Your Kids Can Listen and How to Listen So Your Kids Can Talk. And that was a really pivotal moment for me around communication. So the next sort of chunk of my career was around communication. So learning more about coaching and having good conversations. And I also, it's crazy, and it's not crazy. It's the things that we do to as we go along through life. And sometimes it's our own inner journey that directs us to where we're going. And so at this stage of my life, I was also going, well, on the outside, everything looks great, but internally, inside of me, it was not so great. And I was like, there's a mismatch here. What do I need? So I did quite a lot of inner work, basically. And in the course of that, came across a particular therapy called craniosacral therapy, which is a little niche, but actually is an amazing therapy. And I trained as a therapist. So as well as learning the communication side, I learned more about central nervous systems and stress and trauma and how that can impact people and your well-being. So I kind of learned a lot about how humans are, and their well-being, and also how we can talk better together. So those two things kind of came along together, as my kids were sort of getting older. And again, just working for myself during all that time. I had a limited company. The glass engraving business was a limited company. Then I was just self-employed doing therapy and coaching based work. And in all of this time, during this time, my interest in the environment and nature and all the things that were going on was still with me. And actually, a photo pinged up on my Facebook feed recently of I was away on a holiday with my 3 little children and my husband. I don't know, they must have been like 2, 4, and 6 or something. And I remember at the time I could not watch the news or listen to the news, because if there was anything there about the climate and what was going on in the world, it was too overwhelming. And I didn't realize that actually I was experiencing kind of climate anxiety. That language around it wasn't present, but it really was. So the impact on me was I could not even engage with it because it was too much. It upset me too much, going, I don't know what the future's going to be like. It's too frightening for me. So I kind of disengaged really for quite a period of time, whilst also buying organic vegetables and trying to grow my own. And I'm no vegetable farmer, that's for sure. And trying to make good choices. But part of me just couldn't engage with that bit in that way, especially with my little young people around me. And that kind of passed. And there was a moment, and lots of people were in this moment when the Blue Planet came out. I think it's about 8 years ago, and the plastic pollution, and it really hit home to so many people and me. And I began to form the question, what can I do? What can I do with my skills and experience that could make a difference in the world around the climate and the planet? And I just kind of held this question. And it guided me to where I kind of then threaded my career. I was at that time I was sort of still working as a craniosacral still working as a coach. Still, I was learning to be a facilitator at that time as well. So facilitating groups, so groups of people could speak better together, not just one-to-one. And yeah, I looked at what could I do? I looked at, could I start a business sustainability hub locally? What might that look like? Can I facilitate that coming together? And experimented with some things that didn't really set off. Didn't really happen. But the question was there. It just was a real constant for me. Then COVID happened, and of course that's another kind of bombshell that we all kind of went through. And my hands-on therapeutic therapy, being a complementary therapist with the craniosacral work, basically stopped dead because I couldn't work in one, it was zero contact, and two, the conditions that when we could then work again as therapists weren't tenable for me. So basically I went, I'm just going to focus on coaching and facilitation. I can do that online remotely. So spent a lot of time, just doing that, working with groups, facilitating all sorts of very interesting conversations globally. And I worked on a project for a while, developing a program called Better Conversations. I ran a podcast very briefly in the course of all of that. And so, many things, but basically always working part-time, flexibly around my children, because that's what was important to me. And that's what I wanted to do. And I was also in this period of turmoil and COVID times, thinking more about what else can I do. So every time there was a training or a kind of way to learn more about sustainability, circular design, circular economics, I would just kind of attend. I just because there were so many online programs. Suddenly, like the world was your oyster. You could attend all kinds of things. So that's what I did. I did all kinds of learning, and thinking about this question of how can how can I bring my skills and experience to make some kind of difference. And that project came to an end where I was working on Better Conversations. That still exists and goes on. I left the project and somebody else took that on. And about 3 years ago, I did another training, which this is a very long, I appreciate this is quite a slightly long and winding story as to why I'm doing what I'm doing now, which is why I set up a climate business. Yeah. And about 3 years ago, I did a program called Air Miners, and I had no clue that this thing was possible. But the concept of air mining is you can, using technology, a combination of technology and nature, remove the excess carbon dioxide that's in the atmosphere. So we have too much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. It's causing global heating, that's having all kinds of other impacts. And there are technologies that positively extract this excess carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. And in combination with doing carbon reduction, where what can you do in your own activities to reduce your carbon footprint, this idea of carbon dioxide removal sits alongside that, going, well, if you've done everything you can in your business or your operations or your life to reduce your carbon footprint, for want of a better word, as far as it will go, you're left still with some carbon to offset, because it is quite challenging to get to zero. And so when people talk about net zero, it's generally because they've what's called offset, that bit that they can't actually get out of their supply chain or their business operations. They then go, well, we kind of go to nature-based solutions. So we might pay to have some trees planted because they're capturing carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, and that's helping draw carbon out of the atmosphere. But yeah, it opened my eyes to there's something really positive you can do. You can take a really positive action. So then the next bit of time, the next kind of two and a bit years after learning about these carbon dioxide removal technologies was, well, can I work in that space? It's emerging. There's super interesting things going on. Can I bring to my coaching and team support facilitation skills to that space to help companies who are building and growing carbon dioxide removal technologies? Can I be in support of what they're doing? And an admission, marketing is not my strong card. I do attend loads of programs around how to market, but I did all of the things. I followed the guidance, and I found it really, really hard to get into that marketplace, and partly because it's not in the UK. Most of these projects are overseas, and like lots of startups, they've got no money, they've got very little bandwidth. Somebody going, hey, I can help you think more clearly, and at that time I was talking more about being more personally productive and you and your team being more productive, working better together. Didn't have the bandwidth for it, and I gave that 12 months, and that was 2024. That was where I was focusing, is going, well, how can I make this difference that I want to see in the world by supporting other businesses to do that thing. And come Christmas last year, I was like, I've just spent a year doing all this work trying to position myself, talking about this. Came up with the name Evology in the course of that. And at Christmas, I went, I need to stop. My mental well-being's not great. I'm spending a lot of time online. I'm not having good social contact. So I actually chose to stop consider all the marketing around product management, productivity, sorry, not product management, and just take a pause. And that pause actually consisted of me taking a part-time job in a pub, because I went, maybe this is the kind of work I can do where I get to meet people. I don't have to use my brain a lot to think. I can just deliver a service. There's a really lovely pub that serves really great food. So every time you're serving food, you're serving some joy on a plate to people. People are generally very, very pleased to kind of be your customer. So it was really, really lovely move to do that. And it gave my brain a break from what I was doing. And it supported my own well-being, my mental well-being, because I was quite struggling at that stage with just feeling a bit low and going, what am I trying to do here? And in that pause and in that space of serving beer and pouring delicious glasses of wine and serving great plates of food, I had the space to consider more this question of, and this, my question of what can I do with my skills and experience had evolved into, how can a business, through its either direct or indirect actions, just the existence of business as a concept, help make the planet a better place? So the moving money flowing through a business, so people doing contracting, I'll provide a service A or product B, and through the action of this business somehow has a positive impact on the planet, rather than the kind of more historical side of thing where it hasn't, because otherwise we wouldn't be where we are today in terms of the climate and the planet. And discovered the language for this is regenerative business. And I went, oh, that sounds really cool. I'd like to be one of those. How can I turn my service-based coaching business and training and facilitation into a regenerative business? What's involved in that? And that was at the beginning of this year. And I was wondering about how to do that, and took on a business mentor who said, that sounds, really interesting. And how do you get a return on being a regenerative business? And I don't know, this is likely listeners are familiar with this. You get asked a question, your brain does something with the information, and up pops a kind of response, and you're like, what the hell? I hadn't even considered that as an idea. And the idea was, all that carbon dioxide removal technology business that you learned about, Catherine, why don't you set up one of those businesses in the UK? You could just do that. And I was like, oh, and I was like, had this inner conversation with myself going, are you serious? Are you really, really serious about doing this? And it turned out that I was, because I got quite pushed. My mentor then went, okay, I hear you. You want to set up, it's called biochar, this particular carbon dioxide removal technology. You want to set, do you really want to do that? And the answer every time is yes, I do want to do that. I don't know how to do it. I'm going to find out. So that, Mark, is pretty much where you find me now. Since March till now, I've been going, what's involved in setting up a biochar production in my local area? So I'm in Petersfield in Hampshire. Do it on a local level. What's the equipment I need to get? Who are the people who are involved? How do I raise funds to do that? Who's even interested in, the impact of all of that? So and the threads that run through this is that I've always cared about the planet. I've got a background in manufacturing, so actually setting up a manufacturing company is not a scary thing for me, because I've already done it once, and I've worked in very large kind of other large corporate-based manufacturing companies. I'm very experienced and, some would say, skilled in talking with people and understanding what's going on for them, and making things relevant to them where it is, or going, no, that's not so useful. So that kind of stakeholder management piece come together. And since deciding to do this, and it's not yet a business, it's called Evology at the moment, but it's likely I'm just going through a name changing activity at the moment, because it's not the right name now for the business, because that name Evology came from another place. So it's likely I'm going to have another name for the business. But it raises questions now that setting up this biochar production is called a project. So you set up a biochar project. And in doing this thing, you need funding to set it up because you're buying equipment. You're basically buying some metal, a kiln. Is the easiest way to describe it. It costs some money. So yeah, how do I get funds? Then if I want to run a regenerative business, which is what I want to do, what kind of structure might that be? Would a limited company serve that, or would a cooperative, or would a CIC? So these are the kinds of things that are on my mind and I'm considering at the moment. I'm clear that what I want to do, how to structure my business now, and then can I flex that in the future? Because where I am now, it may or may not be relevant. There could be some, because I want this business to scale, not just be one production unit, but I'm quite ambitious because the impact of producing biochar, just say a little bit about it, and then maybe it makes a bit more sense. So what biochar is it's a process where you burn waste biomass. So that could be wood, it could be trees, it could be agricultural waste. So when they've harvested, leftover harvesting, or if in the other countries, like if they're harvesting coconuts, coconut shells could be an example of waste biomass. Rice husks. We don't have such things here in the UK, but we have trees, and nature is brilliant at photosynthesizing and actually generating quite a lot of biomass. So how can you take what's not needed, the waste of that? So that's what I do. I take waste biomass, and I'm looking at tree waste at the moment, put it through this kiln, which is a special kind of process called pyrolysis, which is burning at quite a high temperature in the absence of oxygen. And it kind of decomposes what goes into that. It doesn't burn it as such. It decomposes it at temperature that it releases heat, which you can do something with because it's quite considerable the amount of heat that comes off when you're doing this to wood. How do you capture that and do something useful with it? And it creates this thing called biochar, which is like a charcoal skeleton of whatever's gone in. So if you put a wood chip in, you're going to get a little carbonized bit of wood chip skeleton out. So it's highly porous, but it's also super stable. And this is where the carbon dioxide removal bit comes in, is basically the trees have created carbon into their body. And if you left them in their natural life cycle as a tree, the carbon dioxide they've drawn in through photosynthesis and makes up their mass, will get released again as carbon dioxide over time as it dies and goes back into its natural kind of what's known as the carbon cycle. And what this business, when you're creating biochar, is you're interrupting that carbon cycle. You're capturing the carbon from the trees through this burning or pyrolysis process, heating at high temperature, absence of oxygen. And this char that comes out, this biochar, is highly durable in that and you put it in the ground, which is a really great place to put it, it will be there in 1,000 years' time. So it's a very durable way of capturing carbon out of the atmosphere using trees. So it's a nature and technology kind of solution, the power of those two bits put together. And then not only are you capturing carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere into this char, then if you put the char, you need to do a couple of things to it before you put it in the soil, but if you put the biochar into soil, it then it acts like a way to superpower the health of the soil. And so it supports microbial life there. It traps water and holds water, so it's great for water retention. It does all kinds of marvelous things for soil. And the impact of that is that you get better crop growth and plant yield. And if you're growing tomatoes, people love it for tomatoes, for instance. And you can use it on an agricultural scale, so it can help rejuvenate the soils of farms. And you can use it in your garden. You can use it in horticulture. You can use it all kinds of places from a soil perspective. So that's another thing that comes from this biochar production. And then the third bit, so in terms of thinking from a business perspective, you can get in a revenue stream from the heat that comes off your this heating process from the wood as it gives up its energy. You get the biochar itself, which is another revenue stream. You can sell that as a soil amendment. And thirdly, if you do this process really well and you do it in a way that you can guarantee the quality of your biochar and all the things that you're doing, you can become part of the carbon credit market, which goes back to offsets. So though that's your 3 income streams. So that's a bit about biochar. And I went off on a little tangent. I'm trying to get back to what it was. Pardon me, whilst I try and put this all back together. Where I am now is this is the business I'm running. It's producing biochar, using waste biomass material, heating it, decomposing it at temperature, high temperatures, doing something useful with the heat, getting the biochar itself into a useful end use state, so in the soil where it can have another great impact, especially around carbon sequestration as well. That's another, it's got double kind of benefit around carbon sequestration. And I can sell carbon credits. So that is my business model, and how to structure my business, I don't yet know. So that's something that takes up literally is on my plate at the moment, going how to structure business. And I need to get a bit of a wriggle on because I've talked about funding. I've got somebody who's interested in providing some funds to get this project off the ground, do a pilot. But they need to give the money, if they're going to give me some funds for this, they need an entity to which to give it. They can't just give it to me, Catherine Daley, put it into my bank account. So it's quite a pressing problem, but really marvellous that, yes, it's the South Downs National Park having expressed an interest, because I live and work in the South Downs National Park. It ticks loads of their climate support, rural job boxes, as well as community energy and heat. So it ticks several boxes for them. So it's marvellous that they want to be in support of the project. Mark, you asked about my origin story. Here you go.
Blimey, there is so much to unpick from that story. There's so much for people to follow through on that. Not just the end result, which sounds like a wonderful end result, and it sounds like an exciting project to be part of, and even that, but the whole journey of going through the evolution of your journey through product manufacturing, through to your own product manufacturing, through to the health and wellness and the communication stuff. There's such a journey, which generally, from what I've heard, and I've talked to quite a few people over doing this. This is one of the most interesting journeys I've come across. And one of the things that I love so much about it is it also, there's so much to unpick in terms of the sort of things that you've done in your evolution of who you are and who you've been and who you've needed to be to move on to the next stage, that is relevant to people who are, you're going through the same sort of challenges. I mean, you talked about sort of falling out of love with your business. Business is tough. We all know when you're running a small business, and part of what we do here is to remind people of that. Is you have to get up every morning and go and motivate yourself to do what it takes to get the business going. And if you've fallen out of love with it, it's hard. It's and there are so many easier ways of making money than running your own business. So if you fall out of love with it, you have to do something about that. And I love the way you've shown that there is a way of doing that. You can do that. Um, and I love that, and also I love the idea of the idea of how one of the things I sometimes lead into this is because I love the idea of people's strengths and weaknesses and leaning into their strengths and their passions, because essentially it's so much easier to follow a passion than it is to try and to do something that's an effort and hard. So there's it's much easier to be great at something than to be mediocre at something just because you've worked hard to fix a challenge, a problem with you. And I love the way that you've that passion has come through in your life's journey as well. Just one question, and this is one of those questions. What would you have said to the original, your 18-year-old self when you started all this? Because essentially, like I said, it's been a long old journey.
What would I have said to 18-year-old Catherine? I find it, gosh, I've got like a million responses to that gone off in my head. Um, stay, stay and trust in the things that are important to you, because you can kind of get distracted by, um, well, it's difficult, isn't it? Because back in the 90s, where it's like boomtown, fossil fuels were fueling
Yeah.
everything. And there was kind of climate conversations in the background. Um, but yeah, I think if I could have dug around a little bit more, would I've done? No, the thing is, I don't want to change anything, because if I hadn't done what I'd done, I wouldn't be where I am now.
To
I think it is just stay with what's important to you, because absolutely that's what drives you. That if it's important, and yeah, come back to that. It's the things that you really value, and going, this is important to me, not because it's important to somebody else and I'm trying to do it for them. I'm doing this because it's important to me. I think that kind of piece, as you're fresh into the world of adulthood and extracting yourself from your family system and what you've been brewed in, and recognizing what's important for me in this.
I think another thing and I was going to ask you, but you've sort of answered it in the process, is would you, if you'd have known then what you know now, would you have sidetracked and changed things? Because essentially, from what I'm hearing, there's a lot of your journey has exactly what you said, has brought you to where you are now. So without that part of the journey, you'd be in a different place. Um, and it
Absolutely. And if any one of those businesses that I had done had taken off, I wouldn't be doing this now. It's because they didn't take off that's caused me to have the pause to go, what the hell can I do? And I love something I'm finding now with this business idea is the amount of energy. This question of have a halftime break in your week. I have so many energizing conversations now. I have to kind of put a lid on it and go, it's so kind of life enlivening, that I get to the weekend and kind of have to kind of par it back a bit and go, how do I just get back to kind of more normal?
Mhm.
So instead of going, I'm feeling drained at the end of the week, I'm like full of flipping energy. Like, I've got to kind of get it back down again, just have a bit of a rest. But I can't quite describe it because it's so novel. Um,
But
I don't
that
know.
is
I'm just put
also
it there and see if it means anything to you.
no, but that's an also an interesting experience, because we talk about I talk about in here about sort of making sure, keeping your focus when life gets in the way sometimes, and you get diverted, and things don't quite go the way you're going. But there is also the um the 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 sustainability of something, when you've got so much energy, so much motivation, so much forward motion. that even that needs to be held back in check at some respects, because it's so easy to and burnout comes from burnout, not necessarily from petering
Mm.
out over a long time. It comes from a lot of energy being expanded, and a lot of energy burning your body. Even if you're
Mm.
enjoying every moment of that journey along the way, you can still get burned out.
Mm.
So it's
Mm.
interesting to hear
Yeah.
that you're coming across that, and you're doing something about trying to keep a sustainability lid on the way you're building what you're building, even with the urgency and the
Mm.
excitement and the energy that you feel.
Yeah. 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 And that's essential. And I have bits built into my everyday life that gets me in contact with nature. So I have some dogs, so that's great because I get to walk every day with them. Um, and yeah, so that settles my central nervous system. And this is something, again, if I hadn't learned how human central nervous systems work and what is stress and what is overwhelm, and felt it in my own body as well as lots of other people, because this is part of what I learned when I was doing that well-being work. Um, I wouldn't be so tuned to what is my own energy and how do I work with it. Because otherwise I would likely be going down the burnout route, because my brain is like, this is super exciting. I want to think about it. It's 5 a.m. on a Saturday morning. Get up and start talking about it. Like, no, go sleep in a tent somewhere, walk around bare feet, feel the grass under your toes for a bit, Catherine. Because it literally, it does kind of, the positive energy that is flowing through my weeks at the moment is absolutely astonishing. Never really kind of, yeah, it's a very energy oriented business, and I've never really experienced that in this way before. And it's
Energy
the
and
kind of people that, oh,
yeah,
yeah,
no,
the
absolutely.
interest that people have in it. Yeah, yeah, it's kind of contagious. It's another way to put it, I suppose. It's kind of positive contagion in a good way, of
No,
energy.
energy in many other ways as well. It's
Mm.
intriguing, interesting, and one of the other advantages about doing this kind of stuff and talking to other people is you mentioned your challenge. Hopefully, this is gonna we're currently recording this, so it's gonna go
Mm.
out, go live. You know, does anybody out there who's listening and watching this have any ideas of how you should structure, or you could structure your business? Because
Mm.
another beauty and about sort of sharing this in as it's evolving, because generally um, we don't always see as it's happening the start of a business. We see the business when it's ready to be
Mm.
put in front of um,
Mm.
someone's face, and I want to sell my product, sell my service. When the service is ready to be sold, we don't always see the journey as that is being created, and we're in a prime location here to see the creation of this as it's being created, which is
Mm.
is intriguing and interesting for people to understand and watch and also take part in, because like you say, they people out there may understand and may know give you some hints and some tips about how to structure your business, and the other challenges you
Yeah, yeah.
face.
So yeah. So particularly, I'm contemplating. Um, so this mindset of being a regenerative business
Mhm.
is, I could just set up a limited company and have shares, and then if it was very successful, the wealth comes to me. And I have a mindset going, well, that would be quite pleasant in some ways. Thank you very much. However, what would be better in terms of the planet and other people is how to distribute that surplus that sits in the business, that I get well remunerated, but I don't get, super wealthy. That's less interesting to me. So how do I structure it so that surplus and wealth goes to people and to nature? Is nature like a shareholder? So every time we make some money, I could sign up for 1%, which is a thing where you kind of give 1% of your profit to a company. Or do I do something a bit bolder and go 25% of our profit always goes back to nature? That's it. then we do people, or the business and then people, whatever. Just kind of that is nature at the forefront of the benefit of the surplus that's coming through. So it's got to be profitable, because I want to generate surplus, and then I want that surplus to then go and have an additional good. I know I'm already running a climate business that's having some kind of good, but does the surplus that come from the business then go and do something that's useful and interesting and is in service to the planet? So that's kind of what regenerative means to me, is that the money keeps flowing and having a positive impact. Doesn't just pool in my bank account.
Indeed, and that's a great, again, starting this off with that in mind is a great way of starting. You know, a lot of people stumble through the start of their business generally because they, you know, rather than knowing that they want a business or they want a regenerative business or any kind of business, they often start a business because they've got a skill or a passion, and they want to provide that to other people and support other people, and the business thing comes in the background. It comes as part and parcel of it. The fact that you're thinking about that and thinking about also the impact of your business on the environment in terms of the regenerative nature of your structure of your business, puts you ahead of the game anyhow, for a lot of people, because it already sets you up as someone who's going to be putting in structures in the business, because it's often the case when people start, like I said, they do the thing and then they start to put structures in, and then trying to shoehorn them into something that's already going can be challenging and painful, and often that's the time when people stop and give up because they're burnt out and they're not enjoying it anymore. Whereas if you start with that, then like I said, it gives the potential for this to be a lot more long living, etc.
Yeah. And the time frames when you're thinking about climate are quite different as well. And I'm not yet used to that because I'm quite imbued in the old model of doing business. And, you talk about quarters and annual and maybe 3-year, maybe you might even think 5-year. And I'm like going, no, 20 years. What would this business look like in 20 years? I'm very likely not to be part of it, but what is it going to be doing in 20 years' time? That is, and holding in mind that, yes, it's been created surplus and done some good. What might that look like? Are there some unintended consequences of its success that I might need to consider? That kind of thing. But yes, again, through this lens of being regenerative, your time frame perspective changes a bit as well.
Absolutely, and there's a great book. We're going to be talking about books later on. There's a great book
Great.
called The Infinite Game. I think it's called The Infinite Game. It's by Simon Sinek. It's the Start With Why guy. I don't know whether he's going to ever live that down, but the Start With Why guy. And he talks about the same sort of thing, about business in particular being an infinite game, a long game. We spend so much time of our time in business thinking about, current now. If we do think about, anything in the future, it's, 1 year, 2 year, maybe if we're lucky 5 year, but it's you're in it for the long term. And when you're playing a game that's a longer game, the rules are different. It's more collaborative, less competitive, and winning and losing is different. And it's about surviving, and it's about keeping going, and that that resilience and regenerative and renewal and all that kind of stuff starts to take more of a forefront in your business when you start thinking about your business in a longer term. And it sounds very much like that's the sort of thinking that you're putting into what you're doing anyhow.
Yeah. I hadn't come across that book. Maybe that's one for my list now.
Yeah, there you go. There we go. Well, that's good. I definitely recommend it. And like I said, it's a great. It talks about. It goes into gaming and game theories and some of the things about how winning and losing, and how winning and losing when you're not talking about a particular single instance of, I'm better than you and I'm the best. It's more of, longer term. I'm surviving. I'm longer. I'm providing more value over the long term. It changes your mindset, but it's definitely I would encourage and recommend people to have a look at it as well, especially if you're going to do business and you're going to do a business that you want to make a difference. And I mean, legacy sounds a bit trite sometimes, but you're wanting it to be a part of something that is there for the long term. And if you're taking long term, you're talking about wanting the world to be here in the long term. Why create a business is yeah. Absolutely. And I love that. I love the way that you've also already tied in the three ways that you can actually get this money, this business to make money, and in the process have a positive impact on the climate.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of I love the idea of that as well. One also thing, you just in a technical term, you talked about it, the biochar, helping and supporting soil, and that I presume that's not from the degradation of the carbon. The carbon charred stuff stays as carbon because that's the point of it. Is that the case? It just the nature of what it is.
So what?
Go on.
Because I'll try and keep. I'm not particularly scientific. I'm not scientific. So the char itself is highly porous. So its physical structure means that. No, let me rewind a little bit. The char is a form of carbon that is durable.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot to break it down. You can crush it to a powder and make really fine dust out of it, but that's not so useful. It's more useful when it's in little chunks. And so those little chunks, once it goes into your soil or into the soil, it lives there, it sits there, stays there. It's becomes housing then for microbes, bacteria, other creatures that live in the soil that are little rootles. As the roots grow, they put out tiny little rootles. I think that's the right word. Tiny little kind of hairy bits.
Yeah.
They go into it and go, oh, thank you very much. These microbes are now in here creating food that we can access. So, and then they have some kind of charge to them as well, which means they then bind. And this is my chemistry is the poorest of my sciences. It kind of binds things like nitrogen and phosphorus into the soil, so it's not available to water to wash it out. It then locks those into the soil as well, so it keeps the nutrients and the minerals in the soil through its presence. It's an astonishing product, really is.
Okay, so it sounds material. Like it's partially the physical nature of the thing as opposed to the chemical nature. That causes it makes the soil more porous. It makes the soil more able to, because we've all seen people when you dig in the garden and you've got a big lump of clay that nothing grows through clay, whereas this kind of stuff probably supports loosening.
Opens out the structure. Yeah.
It's interesting. Also, in the back of my head, I'm also hearing the. I learned a while when I was listening to a book called The Entangled Life. I think it's all about my mushrooms and fungi and mycelia. Yeah, indeed.
Mycelium.
Yes, and one of the things that I also come across when I was reading that is the coal layer we have in the ground. It came from an area where trees weren't at that stage. There weren't things to degrade and break down trees. So when a tree fell down, like you say, it locked the carbon into the earth because there was nothing to break it down at that stage until I think it was fungi and other kinds of things came and that's what broke down some of the stuff from, so that we have a thin layer of coal, and from then onwards it's now the carbon is returned through the thing. So it sounds like you're sort of replacing that sort of mechanism a little bit.
We're kind of doing, yeah, we're reversing that. Yes.
Yes.
Or yeah, reintroducing that mechanism. That's a great way to think about it. Yeah. And on mycelium, it might not make sense to people who don't know what we're talking about, Mark, but I use mycelium as a metaphor to describe how I want my business to be.
Yes.
I want this sort of distributed network of biochar and production and associated businesses that's like mycelium. So there's a sharing and exchange of energy, information, nutrients. So that's how I try, and when I'm pitching, that's why when I pitched to the South Downs National Park, I said I want to create a business a bit like mycelium. And they nodded and went, because they're all environmentalists. They were like nodding
They all
along.
love, yeah,
going,
they all love.
oh, that's good. Yeah. Yeah, I like the sound of that.
Excuse me. So yeah, so no, there you go. That's another intriguing way of structuring your organization such that it grows in the same way as a network, as opposed to a network and connected network, I suppose, of mycelium or whatever else you might think. So that's another interesting twist in how you're trying to structure it, and also again you're thinking in the future, so you're thinking in terms of scaling as opposed to thinking of just making a business for himself. So you're thinking again as a business that has a life outside of you and a life outside of your life and a life outside of your immediate environment. So like I said, an immediate location, an immediate time, an immediate physical sort of thing. So which is again a head start on people when they start their business, really, which is a great sort of place to be. You talked about funding as well. Is that's another interesting conversation that businesses sort of having to go through. So a lot of businesses, especially the ones that I talk to, in some respect, tend to be sort of bootstrapping. So they tend to sort of grow the service and use that to grow the business if they're thinking about growing the business, if they're making plans. How are you finding the funding conversations and the processing in getting that? I mean, I know you've found one person in one group. Are you looking for particular types of fund?
Oh, it's a really interesting question. And when I run it through the regenerative lens, because that's kind of what I do now, is so things like, well, people go, well, what about venture capitalists? And I'm like, well, VC. And I'm like, I don't know, because what that then shows me is what's important to me is that I would rather people inside the business or as sometimes related to it have the opportunity, if they've got X surplus to invest or whatever, they get the benefit of that rather than some third party offsite, not in the local, not in this area, not in the UK, seeing the other benefits that come, not just the money side of it. And so I'm kind of not even pursuing VC's, just not interesting to me. And I know maybe I'm just shutting off a whole kind of opportunity, but I'm going, well, what else is available? And that opens up new conversations, basically. And then also VC is, well, we want a part of your business and we want shares. And I'm like, but I'm not sure I'm going to set up a business based on shares. It might be set up on something else. I can't give you something or sell, give you the opportunity to have a share in something if it's not going to be share based, which links back to how do I form my business. And then if people aren't getting shares in their business, what kind of return do they get? And then that's more like a loan model. And it's like, well, I give you some money and then you get some kind of return on that. You get your money back plus something. And might people be interested to give me some money? And then the interest is actually in carbon credits. So they get to offset their carbon footprint to the value of my carbon credits might sell at. Might that be interesting to people? I don't know. I'm just kind of looking anybody listening who wants to have a conversation about might be interested, is might that be an interesting thing? Or it's like, no, that sounds crazy. I'd just rather get some more money back. um, and yeah, so this idea, and there's the current climate is that there's very little grant money available right now. And so even with the South Downs National Park saying we want to be in support of your project in principle, and we have some money, but we can't just give it to you. We want you to give it we want over time we want you to give it back with interest. So it's a loan. It's no longer a grant.
Yep.
Right, okay, well, yeah, can work with that. And that actually sits much better with me because that's money moving. It's like, well, you've given me some money. I've done something with it, which is generating more money. You get your money back plus something. You can go do something else with that or fund another one of my projects. Thank you very much. It keeps it flowing. And I really like that idea. And yeah, and then I have conversations where people go, oh, well, have you heard about this fund? And I'm like, no, I've never heard of that fund. Oh, yeah, they fund projects, like £500,000. And I'm like, well, that's really interesting because I'm thinking about a project that's like £120,000 to get it off the ground. But my next project will be nearer £2 or £3 million. I'm like, well, I need to start thinking about who's got the scale of the funds to do that, and what might that look like. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with funding at the moment. I'm bootstrapping, yeah. Um, I that is a route, but I kind of am wondering that to use that principle, but is there a way to? I think I'm a little bit bitten by the urgency bug because it is, the climate situation is pretty tough right now. And, what can I do, like you talk about, in a sustainable way that doesn't burn either the business out or me out, that we can grow at pace. And again, thinking about nature, I think about the grass. I'm quite interested in grass. We haven't had much rain right now, so it's not been growing very much. But as soon as you give it the right conditions, it's got the nutrient in the soil and some water and the sunshine, it suddenly goes boof, and you have this abundance of grass, and like you could actually see it growing. And it's like, well, can my business be like that? Can I get the right conditions that it can have this sort of boom time, knowing that it's not going to go on forever? It's like for a period, it's a set amount of time, and then the autumn comes and things naturally slow down. Can I use those kind of cycles as a way to go, it is possible to grow rapidly and then have a bit of a pause and then grow rapidly again. So it's not like we often see in charts, isn't it? It's just like straight line linear thing. It's like, no, can we just do a little bit of ebb and flow in that?
Indeed,
I don't
indeed,
know yet,
and
but
and
I
that's
hold these ideas in mind.
yeah, no, I think you're right to consider these, and also I think I've seen and I'm being a part of in both in corporate and both in my experience with other businesses, the mad rush to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow, outstripping their ability to cope with things when they get to that scale, ending up um, burning themselves out, burning the business out, and not being able to sustain that kind of level of growth. So it's another it's another right conversation to have in terms of how can you grow sustainably, and is growing sustainably doing it in terms of shifts and growth spurts and then pauses, or is it how is a growth going to be sustained so that you can actually maintain it and scale it up in such a way that you can keep control of it without it burning? You talk about nature again. The massive growth spurts that happen when, like you say, after a drought, or after a period of situation where the nutrients or the weather or something is not right for growth, and all of a sudden you have massive explosion of growth, and that massive explosion of growth can get out of hand. even in nature, there is a, it can get out of hand. It tends in nature itself tends to be complex enough that
Mm.
there are feedback systems that will pull it back a little bit. So it tends to, apart from humans, in which case we don't often have the
I know,
feedback
right?
loop to pull ourselves back a little bit. But nature in
Yeah.
general has these
Mhm.
feedback loops that keep it from going wild, overly wild. And maybe that's, you're right. That's an interesting conversation to have at the beginning as well, to start thinking about that,
Mm.
so that you don't get tied into like you say, it's an interesting, exciting, energetic, and passionate sort of business to be involved in, and it can be easy to get carried away with the excitement,
Mm.
and end up growing because you want, like I said, there's an urgency
Mm.
um, to support the environment, and to pull back and to try and save some of the redo or pull back some of the challenges that we've put in front of us. And there's an urgency, like you say, to do that. But
Mm.
again, if you're not careful, you burn yourself out, and then there's no one else to do it. So you've got to be that
Yeah.
balance,
Mm.
and you're right to have that kind of conversation at the start before, and build. One of the for instance, me, I'm pulled away from corporate because often, a lot of the times, I'm trying to fix problems rather than put in great thingies at the beginning. And if you
Mm.
think of things at the beginning, it's a lot easier to put in good habits at the beginning and then to break bad habits.
Mm.
So
Stephen Covey, that build the what's it, build with the end in mind.
yes,
And it's such an enduring
yeah,
piece of guiding kind of knowledge that wisdom, it's not even knowledge, that is wisdom. And yeah, that stays with me as well as yeah, what is the end or what might the end be like? And yeah, work towards that. Um,
absolutely. And like I said, hopefully, people are listening to this will have some feedback and some information to help and support you
mhm.
with that, which is good. I do like the ideas. I mean, you talked about using carbon credits as as a means of funding your business, but also as a means of growing your business in terms of loans, offsetting loans against
Mm.
carbon credits.
Mm.
That to me sounds an intriguing and interesting way of building both into, it sounds like a
Mm.
win-win sort of thing. And I'm pretty certain there will be businesses, as we get closer to some of these deadlines, that will be encouraged and forced to really actively consider, rather than pay lip service, to offsetting. Like you say, there's only so much you can go to pull
Mm.
towards net zero.
Mm.
That you're going to have to offset that, and having the ability to do this might well overlay some of the challenges they're facing, and maybe even fines that they're faced and all that kind of stuff by not reaching their
Mm.
targets. Whereas they could fund some support into an organization like you, and your whatever your organization structure ends up being.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So that does
Yeah.
sound like an interesting,
Mm.
intriguing way of funding that isn't VC, and I can see your feeling about VC
Mm.
funding.
Mm. So yeah, we're just and interestingly, people do. I talk about what I'm doing. They go, "Well, can I invest?" And I'm like, "Well, that's lovely. That would be. I really appreciate that. I've just said a bit about what I'm up to, and you're offering some money funds to come my way. But yeah, again, it's that I don't yet know how to remunerate or structure that. Because again, is it shares? No, it's not. If it's not shares and it's a loan, what kind of loan is that? Um, or is it shares? And what kind of business can you have with? Yeah. Anyway, so literally, I am in this what legal entity and I create, but isn't just about this. Because I was having a chat with my accountant, and he said, well, you're best off probably setting up a CIC, because you're more likely to get funding. But then in my end in mind is that that's not how I want to. It doesn't make sense to me then to be a CSO looking into the future, and I don't want to. It's not, yeah, it might get me somewhere, but I don't want to build a business based on how do I best get funding right now, because that does not talk to the future in a sustainable way.
You're right. Funding is
yeah,
a way to get somewhere, not a means, not an end itself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Intriguing, interesting,
Yeah.
and also
I can talk about this for hours, Mark. But
yes, indeed.
I have to be careful.
Yeah, and I am conscious that we have been talking about this for a while. So I will get to the stage where we might have to put a pin in it and bring you back at some stage. But one thing I liked your idea as well. I just wanted to put this in front of you is I like the idea of you using it as a model for a business, a profit-making business that is also having the climate and the world in mind as well. So I sort of pull back from a little bit from. I think you might miss some of that if you do things like turn it into a charity, turn it into a CIC, and some of these sort of things that are a co-op maybe, but some of the other things feel as if you're pulling back from the idea. This is a business. It's got plenty of legs in it. It's got plenty of way of making a profit. I mean, okay, I want to turn that profit back into supporting the environment and supporting the world and supporting whatever it might be. But this is a valuable business that also is sustainable, also is regenerative, etc. And so I would for me it feels more in tune with what your conversation by trying to keep it as a business rather than any other structures. I don't know whether that helps you or not.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it does kind of, and I did set off going, it needs to be a business that makes profit, and that's its purpose is to be profitable, but not at the expense of.
Yes.
In service to.
In
it's
service,
the switch of.
Yeah.
That this money, the money that the way that we make a surplus can then is answering that question of how can a business by making money be good for the planet. I'm going, well, how does this business needs to make a surplus, needs to make a profit? How do we then make that profit be of service?
Yeah.
It's kind of
indeed
is answering the question.
Indeed, and I like that's still in front of mind for you, and I would encourage you to stand firm and
thank you.
And keep that, because I love that as a model, and I think it's a great a great thing to show people that business doesn't have to be destructive to the planet. I mean, admittedly, this is a particular type of a business that is in front of it, is in service of climate support, but it's still a business as it is saying, and it's a good model to ensure how you can think about what you can do as a business that's creating profit, creating support, and but also either serving the community or serving the planet.
Absolutely, yeah. And I appreciate that this is now a business that direct action is having a positive impact, not just the existence of it. But maybe it inspire other people to, like you just summarize there, Mark, is I've got surplus, what do I do with it? How else can I that go? And people go, I put it into a charity. Of course you can do that. But there's other things you can do with your surplus. What does that look like? And just see what comes from that. I don't know. It's very much emerging. And so I imagine if we meet in like 6 months' time, what I've learned and where I am then.
Well, brilliant. Then with that in mind, that's a pin in that. Maybe we will
Okay.
revisit this in 6 months and come on and
Mm,
see where I won't call it evology, because it may not be evology, but your biochar business is
mm,
in that
yeah.
state. So it's
Mm,
definitely a something to consider, see how it's going. Like I said, it for me, I think it would be great to see that growth and that change, for people like who are listening potentially to this, running their own business,
mm,
growing their own
mm,
business, to see what it's like, the journey that you go through. So
mm.
I would definitely encourage them to keep an eye on you. Uh, and we normally do this at the end, but this seems like a point to suggest this. Where can they find out? Where's the best place to follow you and contact you and connect with you um, and find out how you're getting
At the
on?
moment, that is LinkedIn is the best place to connect with me. So I look like I do now. It's a current picture of me. And yeah, it's just my name, Catherine Daley. So you can find me on LinkedIn. Um, I have bits and starts of activity on LinkedIn. I'm learning to love it and yeah, I'm going to be way more active on that. Whilst I'm sort of coming out of this feasibility into tangibility phase of a startup. Um, yeah.
Definitely. Well, I will put that link in the notes and the comments where and this comes, so people can reach out, say hi, connect, and follow your journey as well, which would be great. Um, like I said, we could talk about this for a long time. Generally, we talk about how, like I said, this is about the halftime huddle. Um, I would
Mm,
normally ask for depth, but we've covered an awful lot in your journey, about how you go through, and it's interesting to, like I said, hear the flip side of this, which is the excitement is so much that you have to pull yourself back rather than push yourself forward, which I love
mm,
to see as well. But there is one piece of quote business that I really want to sure that we do before we move on, um, is our book choice. Like I said, I've talked about a book that I would
mm,
recommend. I've teed you up for this beforehand in the notes. Before, I gave you about the
mm.
podcast. So, what is your book? What was a book that you would recommend or have recommended to people?
This is the book.
I will.
Oh, let's get that in the camera. Giving Voice to Values.
Aha.
Such an important book. Giving voice to values. And it is the book that I talk about most often because I'm in a value-led, value-oriented business. And this book talks about when your values are in conflict with somebody else's, what do you do? Because there's lots of things I'm going to be talking about that conflict with other people. And how do we stay in contact? So it links back to how do you stay in good contact with people when you don't agree, um, and not give up on your own values. There's probably people listening here who may have been in corporate world who went, actually, I left because of values oriented decisions and didn't like what they were doing. I left. And I hold my hand up. I was in a company like that, and I was very, very pleased to leave it when my time came, because I was like, I do not want to be working in a company like this ever again. And they could pay me all the money there is, and I would be saying no to that. Um, so yeah, it's a really it's written by a researcher, so it's underpinned by science and research. But basically, it's like when you yeah, it's how to, it literally is like it says, giving voice to your values. How do you talk about your values and how do you stay true to them when others or organizations around you are challenging what's important to you?
Brilliant. Sounds like a great book, and I definitely going to add that to my wish list. Values are a key part of the conversations I have with businesses, in terms of
Mm,
ensuring that they understand what their personal values are, what they want their business
mm,
values to be, because it's something that is, in my mind, a key decision making process in how you run your business. If you don't know what your values are,
Yeah.
then it becomes very muddy. It becomes messy. Whereas if you hold by your values and you understand what your values are, you attract people with the same values, um,
Mm.
and B, you know where the boundaries are. Like you say, you talked about this
Mm.
organization
Mm.
that you wouldn't go back to, no matter how far you pay. There's plenty of business out there, plenty
Mm.
of places to go. You align with the people who have the same values as you, and so if you know what they are, then
Mm.
it's brilliant. So I love that book. I will be checking it
Yeah.
out, and I hope everybody also has a chance. Again, I'll put the notes in the comments, and also the notes for the description of this episode. It's been wonderful talking to you. Like I said, we could talk about this for hours and hours and hours, it is an interesting point we find you in your business evolution and
Mm.
business growth
Mm.
and development. Um, I am sorely tempted to just put a note in the diary for a couple of months anyhow, just to revisit and bring you back on. I will bring you back on. May not actually put the date in right now because I think it would be intriguing and interesting, as you say, to see where you are in 6 to 9 months, and
Mm.
how things have gone, and whether whether you did get some good advice from this about how to structure your business. I'm sure by then you will have structured
Yeah, yeah, no,
it.
oh, hive mind. I love hive mind. You never know who
No,
might listen and
absolutely.
go, oh yeah, I know. I've just been having a chat with somebody who set up X, Y, or Z, and this is
Yeah,
what's come as that. And yeah.
no,
So
brilliant.
yeah,
So
really welcome any feedback.
definitely,
Um,
definitely. So anybody who's listening to this, please do to listen along, and if you've got any feedback on the information, or you know anybody who's got some information, Catherine would love to hear it. So thank you very much for that. So thank you very much, Catherine. We will, like I said, speak again definitely, and I will say goodbye and speak to you in a minute. So,
oh,
but goodbye.
thank you.
So
Bye.
thank you very
Thank you.
much to everyone. This was a really, I mean, I could have carried on forever. It was a lovely conversation. Please do follow her, and if you've got any information about how you can structure this, she'd love to hear it. I would love to hear your journey. I'm always intrigued to hear how you got to do what you're doing, what sort of business you're running, how you get through it, how you ride the energy and excitement of your business growth, like Catherine, and I would love to hear you. In the meantime, have a great second half of your week, and we will speak to you soon.